my skin is in pretty good condition, but I always want to find new ways, because now you've probably got it organic. Maybe you can talk about your products and even some of them on the website. So it's probably organic. You got none of the toxins. Let's talk about the phthalates and parabens and all that, because I mean, people sometimes might hear this for the first time, and
Yeah.
then you've got the imprinting, which is something very, very unique.
Right, right, right. So that is absolutely true as far as it's got to be clean. You don't want to put
Yeah,
chemicals on top of chemicals. That's the whole point, right?
exactly.
So, right. So the thing is, too, is that I actually am there. I'll tell you, they are not organic, and
Mm,
there's a reason why they're not organic. It's because when you're talking about skincare, it needs to be absolutely clean. But organic is really, it just drives the cost up of the product.
yeah.
And
Say
by
that
the
again.
time
Yeah.
you've, yeah, right. And by the time you've, extracted what you need, they're purified. So they're not organic. However, they're way beyond what we would call FDA all natural. FDA all
Mm,
natural is not enough. So I go way over that process and do like, eco certified and things that are actually clean.
okay.
And you're right. The main thing is in the amount of toxins that people put in their on their skin and in their body through, air and contact is it's really, really important to read your skincare. But there are also hidden areas as well. So you do want to make sure that like you said, no parabens, no phthalates, no synthetic fragrances and perfumes. And that actually is an area where 300 different chemicals can hide due to proprietary formulas. Same thing with even with parabens. Parabens have multiple names to them that you might not recognize. So same thing with dyes, mineral oils, petrochemicals. These are PEGs. PEGs, we have a ton of PEGs. And in the past, people were always thought, well, if it doesn't have those chemicals, it doesn't work. And that is not the case.
Hmm.
What's important, no matter how much you pay for a product, is that it has, of course, the all natural, but it's the active ingredient. And that's where people shortcut. You can say it has resveratrol in it, and if it's not at an active percentage or a percentage that actually performs the task that it's supposed to, then it's just a name.
Yeah.
But there's no way to tell that from looking at a label. There's no way to say, well, is this an active or is this a support ingredient? So those are really important in just a fundamental level of, ingredients and reading. I also have a little talking about the frequency part of it. I have a little green bead or a little blue bead that I've imprinted with frequencies that go in every jar. So
Okay.
for
Wow.
example, yeah. So for example, the blue bead and I use this with my blue mask, are imprinted with frequencies that help for the clusters of melanin under the skin, because a lot of things that treat the skin are treating the surface and they're generally bleaching it, right? So people go, well, it worked, but then I got out in the sun and they reoccurred, or they reoccur after a while. And it's because most things are addressing the surface of the skin. It may take longer for the true energy spot treatment to work, but it's because I'm dealing with the underlying issue, inflammation, sun damage that causes the clustering. And same thing with the emotional stress, so stressors as well. So I'm dealing with the underlying issue of the cell, so that when that cell comes to the surface and it has relearned the healthy vibration of a cell, when it comes to the surface, it's a beautiful cell like it's supposed to be. I mean, as we divulge our age here, is I'm 65. So, I've had the opportunity to practice what I preach, both in practice and with the skincare.
Mm,
So and my biggest thing is at 49, I had a real diversion from my practice. I was treating people, for years that were sick and autoimmune and all the things that we're talking about. And at 49, I caught myself in the mirror inadvertently. I went, whoa, what I am looking at does not match how I feel. So
Yeah.
it kind of had me shift to, what happens with this largest organ of the body.
Mm.
And that's where it kind of diverted to making sure that we're addressing those emotional toxins, physical toxins, what happens with the muscles of the face, which I actually find the most fascinating aspect of it because I don't know about where you live, but where we live in the United States, the beauty industry is saying, injectables and freeze,
Yeah.
right? So the issue with that is that the muscles of the face, most people think that we use them to express our emotions, but it's actually part of a process that helps us understand our emotions. So we have mirror neurons, and those mirror neurons are, how as a child, we learn to mimic other people's facial expressions so that we can understand what an emotion is, right? So if you're having a rough day and you're telling me about some, major thing for you that's stressing you, I will use micro mirroring of your facial expressions that sends information back to my limbic brain that then sends information to my prefrontal cortex where I communicate. So I now understand how you feel, or I've interpreted how you feel. And a lot of people think that our expressions are just expressions as,
Yeah.
of our emotions. They're part of a whole much bigger system, especially with infants. Infants are all, they're all mirror neurons. So learning how to smile, learning how to laugh, all of those things help that little nervous system to develop emotional intelligence
Mm.
and how to really understand other people's emotions. And teens, it's really, really important. So if you're a mom and you have a teen, they're still relying on you to understand emotions based on the emotions in the muscle. The 79% of our nonverbal communication is our face. And the ability to read those is really important when you think about the stress that teens have and the anxiety that they have. They've actually, this is a really interesting study. They put teens in a fMRI and they show them photos and videos of people talking who were, injected with Botox and fillers, or even just Botox, and it actually fired up the brain as if it was experiencing trauma,
Wow.
right? And the reason why is because they don't know how to respond. They don't know how to react because they can't understand and they can't read it. And those little, those little neurons don't actually develop for girls till they're 21. And for boys, 25 is where they fully get developed. So it's really important through that whole process. And it's
Uh,
important for our communication with each other. That's how we connect, right?
Absolutely. A few areas I want to talk about. So you put a little ball in each there from a
Yes.
frequency perspective. So you cause that little ball to resonate at a certain frequency. You've got those frequencies, and then you put it in every single product.
Right. That's
Yeah.
correct.
And that gets your
Yes.
product that's a clean product, like you've mentioned. I've been on, it looks like there's, quite a few sort of natural oils and obviously your own IP there, but so it causes that to resonate at a certain frequency.
Correct. That's
Yeah.
correct. So, yes. So it optimizes the frequencies and it optimizes the communication with whatever tool that you're using, be it face or body.
Okay, brilliant. Okay. And then in terms of, looking at Botox and fillers, that's causing a disruption in the lymphatic system. That's
Mm,
causing a disruption. The muscles aren't moving themselves, obviously introducing a new toxin into that system. Tell us
yes.
about other dangers that people might not know about with regards to, because I get a lot of people come in, want to go the natural route and use Chinese medicine skill tools and that. But tell us
Yeah.
about those dangers, because people are going to be listening saying, I've done fillers, I'm still doing Botox. I
Hmm.
don't see there's a
Hmm.
problem with it.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. And uh so the primary part of it, like you said, is that it is you're adding a toxin into your body. And a lot of people think that it doesn't migrate, but we know that using a toxin on our skin migrates to hormone disruptors. So there's no way, just based on our cellular communication, that that information is not going deeper. It also, because of the lack of muscle movement, we're decreasing ACTH, we're decreasing the neural pathways to the brain because we require cellular or muscle movement to stimulate our communication with our brain. So it's decreasing the amount of neural pathways, information substances moving back and forth from our perception on our prefrontal cortex and our mammalian brain that does the processing, tells us whether we're in danger, tells us how to feel and how to respond based on its history and our history, right?
Mm.
How to respond, and then puts the information back to that frontal cortex to do logical decision making based on that, right? So we're decreasing that information, and as well as decreasing our connection with others. So if I'm talking to you and I have Botox, my face is not moving, I'm not able to make facial expressions, you don't know how to interpret me, and you feel like I might not care, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm not empathizing, I'm not expressing, I'm not using that 70% of non-verbal communication that tells us that we're connecting. It's the emotional
Yeah.
intelligence, right? So now you're disconnecting from me. And because I don't have the ability to really interpret, I'm disconnecting from you. And when 1 out of 3 people report that they feel lonely, this is not going to go in the right direction. It really creates isolation as well as, well, actually, and this is interesting as well, is that there the psychiatry is using Botox for depression, for other mental illness. So if allopathic medicine is using Botox for mental health, that there's a connection. It's just that one is going against nature and
Yeah.
one is going with nature. And when you go against nature, there's always repercussions. You
Mm.
don't hear that long list of drug contraindications and issues because the drug doesn't do anything else but just do what it's supposed to do. This is really the same concept. The idea is that you can get the results that you're looking for and more if you're going with nature instead of against it. And like you were saying, there's plenty of people who have done Botox. It's almost hard to find someone who hasn't done Botox by the time they're,
Mm.
50 or 60. But it's never too late. It's never too late to to repair, to reverse, to regenerate, and to reconnect, with ourselves and others.
Mm.
So it's never too late. And that's my real message. I have people who come in and they go, well, I like my Botox. And it's like, okay, well, let's work with that. Why
Yeah.
don't, start with the True Energy facelift system. And I feel like what you're going to find is that you don't feel like you need to do Botox for a much longer period of time. And inevitably what happens is they don't end up reusing the Botox.